Hey, what's up, fam? I pray and trust and hope you had an amazing day today. I want to welcome you to day 2 of the Following Jesus series of devotionals that we're doing for Holy Week. For those of us who know what this week means, we realize that this week is no ordinary week. This week is Holy Week. It is Passion Week. It is the week that is Jesus' last week on earth. It's the time that we celebrate Jesus' last week on earth. And of course, it culminates, it ends on Easter Sunday morning. And so Easter for believers is it's a major moment for those of us who know and love Jesus. And so because this is no ordinary week, we wanted to take some time, we wanted to take a look at some of the last moments in Jesus' life, because we believe that Jesus' last moments teach us how to live in these moments. And so on yesterday, we took a look at some of his first words from the cross. The Bible tells us that while he's dying on the cross, he is in anguish, and the first words out of his mouth you would think would be for himself, but the Bible tells us that he yells from the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." We learned about the freedom that comes from forgiveness, that Jesus made it his business to use his last moments not to think about himself, but to think about those who needed the forgiveness, who needed to be forgiven rather. And that, of course, that includes us who needed to be forgiven by the Father. And he taught us that as believers, we get the opportunity, we have the opportunity to experience freedom when we choose to forgive. So today I want to take another look at, at another scene from the cross. And it's found in Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. It's in those moments, Jesus to this point has been dying on the cross for a few hours, and the agony of the moment is setting in on him. The weight of our sin is being pressed upon him. The Bible tells us that with the weight and the agony of our sin being pressed upon him, he looks up toward heaven and he yells out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In that moment, Jesus, for the first time in all of eternity, was separated from the Father. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been in a situation where it felt like God was nowhere to be found? Where the pain of abandonment and the pain of rejection and the pain of grief was so deep, you were just trying to find and figure out where God was. And it seemed like the more you called him, the less he responded. I know I've had moments like that. In fact, if we were to be honest with ourselves, all of us know that pain. And I'm encouraged by this text because what it tells us is that not only can I identify with you and you can identify with me, but Jesus identifies with all of us. Jesus knows what it feels like to be in a moment where he feels like he's been forgotten by the Father. And I'm particularly grateful because though it was a painful moment for Jesus, the reality is it brought purpose to our lives. Because many commentators and theologians tell us that in this moment, Jesus had to feel forsaken so that you and I would never feel forsaken by God. Think about it. God turned his back on his son for a brief moment because of our sin, because of our shame, so that God could never turn his back on us. I bring this up because perhaps you're here today and you're watching this, and the truth of the matter is you feel like you're by yourself. You feel like life has gotten so bad for you that God is nowhere to be found. But I want to urge you, my friend, to never mistake God's silence for God's absence. Understand that though you're going through a period where you feel like you're by yourself, remember you are never alone. David put it this way in Psalm 23. You know these words: even though I walk through the darkest valleys, I don't have to fear, for you are with me. In Hebrews, we're taught, Jesus says, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So in these moments where you are experiencing, perhaps you're experiencing a sense of disappointment, perhaps you're feeling a sense of guilt, perhaps you're feeling a sense of despair, perhaps you are afraid. I don't know where you are, I don't know what you're feeling, but I do know this much: God loves you too much to leave you. So I want you to lean into that today, knowing that God is with you. He's holding your hand, and he will always be there to help you navigate the crazy circumstances of your life.